the Somalians in America has demonstrated that if a country is too kind, if a country is too welcoming, that country can be taken advantage of, that country can be manipulated, and that country can be used. The videos you are about to watch are so serious. How the Somalians in America has taken advantage of their system and the corruption, the magnitude of corruption these people are oh God. Look, to you, the Americans, if you are going to sit there and pretend as if you are the keeper of peace in this world, you are going to get yourself involved in any war everywhere because you think you have to help anybody. And you people will not sit down and think about your country and how far your country has fallen and think about ways and means to make your country great again. Then the onus lies on you. Sit there and be the police of the world and leave your back door open for foreigners to intrude and destroy the fabric of your democracy, the fabric of your existence. Sit there and be so gullible that foreigners can take advantage of your system in such a way that the real citizens of America can't even enjoy what their taxpayers' money is supposed to give them. Watch this sequence of videos. They have not been properly arranged, but I want you to get an understanding of what is happening in America, especially Minnesota.
Yeah, where are the children? It says you have 102 children here, and you got $2.66 million this year in funding, and $2.5 million last year. We're just wondering where the kids are.
Yeah. Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. Look at that. Shut us down. Where are the children at? No children inside of this daycare center. And look at this daycare center right here. No children inside of this daycare center. But between those buildings, over $2.6 million. Here in Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. And if you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working, midday. Children should be in here, and this place is licensed for 99 children, and this is the outside. There's no windows, no nothing. And like I said, they literally spelt the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota. The government is complicit with this, and this is just one of the hundreds of child daycare centers here inside of Minneapolis being ran by the Somali population. It's sad that it's happening here in Minnesota, and it stinks that it's happening and it's being labeled on the Somali population. However, that's just the facts of what's happening here inside of Minnesota. $1.9 million for this daycare center that can't even spell learning right. Here in Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government, and look at that. Yes, we would like to know.
Well, it says we're trying to figure out 102 children. Is that for this facility?
What is the name?
It's from the state of Minnesota website. It says you have 102 children here in your child care.
Which child care name is a lot of
Minnesota Child Care right here. It's from the state of Minnesota's website. We're just wondering where the children are.
Where the children are?
Yeah, where are the children? It says you have 102 children here, and you got $2.66 million this year in funding, and $2.5 million last year. We're just wondering where the kids are.
And who are you?
My name's Nick Shirley.
Nick Shirley.
And where you Where is, which department?
That is harassment.
Oh, we are from ourselves.
Yeah.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. Look at that. Shut us down. Where are the children at? No children inside of this daycare center. And look, at this daycare center right here, no children inside of this daycare center. But between those buildings, welcome to Bright Beginning Center. But what do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Sorry. No comments. Can I please?
Right here, you have Serenity Quality Care. All of these businesses are literally the same type of business, providing the same service in the same building. Another, Convenience Home Healthcare, Aid, Inc., and Child Friendly Space. All these companies get money from the government. Why would you have the same company, essentially, inside of the same building, door to door? Right here, Queenly Home Healthcare. It just does not make sense. If you were trying to operate a business, you'd want to have less competition. But here, they have all their competition right next door. We're wondering, because we hear there's lots of fraud taking place here in Minnesota, and we're wondering, why is there so many of the same companies inside of this same building?
No, I don't know that.
What do you think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't have any idea about that fraud, okay? That's it.
What do you think about the news articles and what's being spread on the news about the fraud?
Right now, you are doing something wrong.
I'm just asking you
No, you
about
don't
the
have
fraud.
to ask me, okay? Don't ask me that question again.
Okay.
Okay?
Who can I speak to?
Hmm?
Who can I speak to? Okay. As soon as you confront about the fraud, they get angry. When these people have these home healthcare companies, you're seeing them everywhere inside this building. What kind of fraud are they committing?
So there's false documentation being submitted to the state of Minnesota for services never provided. They're having forms signed in advance for services that were then never rendered. As far as a year or 2 years in advance, they'll have someone sign these forms at one sitting, and then they just file those with the state of Minnesota, and nobody from the state of Minnesota bothers to check that those services were ever provided.
So they're essentially just using people, saying that they had these services provided months or even years ago, then filing the paperwork and then receiving money from the government.
Right, and the Somali community is a very closed community, so everybody's in on it, and they don't want to talk, as you can see.
And for this building, I'm going to give an estimate of around $30 million for how much fraud is taking place. That is a very low estimate. However, still a lot of money in fraud.
And do you think there is fraud taking place here?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what any of these businesses are doing?
I never ask.
And now, with upwards of $100 million in fraud, we headed to one more daycare. And this one gets a little spicy as we get chased out at the very end. And after this, we'll be heading to the state capitol to confront the incompetent government leaders.
We have two child daycare centers. We have the Minnesota Child Care Center, and then we also have Nuna. Between the two, $2.66 million. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Why you flooding?
Yes. We would like to know.
Well, it says we're trying to figure out 102 children. Is that for this facility?
What is the name? Why is it?
It's from the state of Minnesota website. It says you have 102 children here in your child care.
Which childcare name is a lot of.
Minnesota Child Care right here. It's from the state of Minnesota's website. We're just wondering where the children are.
Where the children are?
Yeah, where are the children? It says you have 102 children here, and you got $2.66 million this year in funding, and $2.5 million last year. We're just wondering where the kids are.
And who are you?
My name's Nick Shirley.
Nick Shirley.
And where you? Where is? Which department?
That is harassment.
Oh, we are from ourselves.
Yeah.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. Look at that. Shut us down. Where are the children at? No children inside of this daycare center. And look, at this daycare center right here, no children inside of this daycare center. But between those buildings, over $2.6 million. We were just curious, where are the children at? Do you know where the children are at?
No.
Where are the children at in these daycare centers?
I don't care.
How come these childcare centers have no children?
I don't know. No.
There's $2.6 million inside these businesses that were given by the government, but there's no children to be seen anywhere.
Housing programs, autism programs, all frauds, all fake, all money laundering operations operating under the cover of social services. But here's where the Minnesota fraud story transitions from local corruption to something more systematic. It became so successful, so easy, and so protected that word spread across the country. Prosecutors use the term fraud tourism to describe what happened next. People weren't just committing fraud locally. They were commuting from places like Philadelphia, flying in from other states, setting up fake companies, collecting millions of dollars over the course of weeks, and then leaving. Minnesota became a destination for fraud. If you were a criminal anywhere in America and you wanted to steal from federal welfare programs with minimal risk, you flew to Minnesota. You set up a shell company claiming to provide social services. You submitted false billing to programs with no meaningful oversight. You collected millions, and you left. The program became, in prosecutors' language, a magnet for scammers all across the country. This wasn't opportunistic crime. It was organized, systematic, and scalable. The message spread through criminal networks. Minnesota's vault is wide open. The oversight is non-existent. The political class will protect the system because they benefit from it. Come and get paid. How did this happen? How does a state's entire social services apparatus become a national fraud destination? The answer requires understanding three elements that converged in Minnesota: legislation that removed oversight, Ilhan Omar's Meals Act, eliminated safeguards that would have detected fraud, making programs more accessible, but also creating vehicles for massive theft. Political protection from investigation. Governor Tim Walz was warned by 400 employees that massive fraud was occurring. His response, according to those employees, was to tell them to keep quiet because he didn't want the fraud exposed. Attorney General Keith Ellison, whose office would normally prosecute such fraud, took no action until federal investigators forced the issue. A captured community structure. The Somali community in Minneapolis, represented by Omar and organized around clan loyalties, created an environment where fraud could be systematic and protected. Whistleblowers faced community pressure, investigation triggered accusations of racism, and oversight became politically impossible. These three elements created what prosecutors now describe as fraud tourism, a deliberate ecosystem where theft was easier, safer, and more profitable than almost anywhere else in America. Individual programs experiencing explosive fraudulent growth is concerning. But the true scale of Minnesota's fraud crisis only became clear. Housing programs.
Officers from our Fraud Detection and National Security Directorate, working in teams, have conducted over 1,000 site visits across the Minneapolis-St. Paul area as part of this operation. What they found should shock all of America. Focusing on a list of over 1,000 target cases involving more than 900 individuals, our officers encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstays, people claiming to work at businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa system, abuse of the F-1 visas, and many other discrepancies. Over the course of the operation, our officers found indication of fraud, non-compliance, or public safety and national security concerns in nearly a little less than 50% of the cases interviewed. We found troubling patterns with the Uniting for Ukraine program that should have raised serious concerns under other administrations, such as an individual filing to sponsor more than 100 aliens, and organizations sponsoring hundreds. We are continuing to investigate these cases. Some of the other troubling cases that our officers found. In one case, officers identified an alien who had overstayed his visa waiver, who was the son of a known or suspected terrorist on the no-fly list. He had previously been found to have engaged in marriage fraud, which resulted in the denial of several immigration benefit requests. He was arrested and is now presently being returned to his country of origin. In another, an individual admitted to obtaining a fake death certificate in Kenya for just $100 to prove he was no longer married. In reality, his wife is alive, living here in Minneapolis, and is the mother of 5 of his children. And incidentally, he has another wife living in Sweden with whom he has an additional 3 children. In another case, an alien entered the United States without inspection in 2023, was released by Border Patrol. The alien married a U.S. citizen while in removal proceedings and was interviewed at the Minneapolis-St. Paul USCIS field office just last week, where both he and his American spouse, stated under oath that their marriage was legitimate. The USCIS officers conducting the interview were suspicious. The site visits were authorized the same day. The American spouse ultimately that afternoon admitted the marriage was fraudulent and entered into solely for immigration purposes and withdrew her petition for that alien. This type of same-day action for interview, from interview to site visit has...
Think about this for a minute. Are you shocked? Are you shocked? I'm not shocked. This is what they do. And I'm not saying just Somalians. This is what immigrants do that don't assimilate. This is what happens when you make our system lack or laxed. This is what they do. Now, this is another instance of tax fraud. And SNAP manipulation. And Somalians are 42% of this. They 42% of this. Roll the clip.
42 million people in this country that need food stamps on a weekly basis. And we're saying people deliberately instead of Americans because most of the people that are on food stamps aren't even from this country. 45% of Afghanistan immigrants are on food stamps. 42% of Somali immigrants, 34% of every immigrant from Iraq, 23% of Haitians, 59% of all illegal aliens are collecting food stamps, meaning that most of the people getting food stamps from the U.S. government and the U.S. taxpayer are not even Americans. Think about that. And we didn't know about any of this before the government shutdown started, but thanks to Democrats, we can confirm tonight that millions of Joe Biden illegal aliens, people who crossed the border when Joe was president, are now collecting food stamps from a program funded by hardworking American taxpayers.
And then people say, you crazy, Brandon, for saying this. You crazy for saying it. Y'all crazy. Y'all just hate immigrants. This is xenophobia. They doing fraud, bruh. And I put this on my life that the 59% of all illegal aliens who are receiving SNAP benefits outspends the entire budget that we give to foreign aid. I put that on my life that they're getting more money from your taxpayer dollars here in America through fraud than we give to Israel, that y'all seem to cry about every day, that we give to Jordan, that we give to Egypt, that we give to all these other countries, all across the Middle East, all across the world. You put all those numbers together, the biggest problem is this fraud with illegal aliens.